I remember the exact moment my wife slapped me. Not because of the pain, but because of the silence that followed. It was the kind of silence that doesn't just sit in the room, it crushes it. But the truth is, the slap didn't start the story. It ended something that had been quietly breaking for a long time. That night was supposed to be normal, just another family dinner at my in-laws' house, the kind we'd been having every other Sunday since we got married. Same house, same table, same polite conversations that always felt just a little too forced. I had learned early on that dinners at my mother-in-law's house weren't about eating. They were about performance, about saying the right things, smiling at the right moments, pretending everything was perfect, especially for her, my mother-in-law, Diane. She had this way of speaking that sounded sweet on the surface, but always carried something sharp underneath, like every compliment had a hidden edge. "You've lost weight," she'd say, smiling, and somehow it would feel like an insult. My wife, Emily, never seemed to notice, or maybe she just chose not to. That night, we arrived a little late. Emily had insisted on stopping to pick up wine. "Mom likes this brand," she said while driving, her eyes focused on the road. "Of course she does," I muttered. Emily glanced at me. "Please don't start tonight." "I'm not starting anything. Just be nice, okay?" I laughed quietly. "I'm always nice." She didn't smile. "That's not what I meant." I didn't respond, because I knew exactly what she meant. Be quiet, be agreeable, don't challenge anything, don't embarrass her. We pulled into the driveway, and I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, like I was stepping into a place where I didn't quite belong. The front door opened before we even knocked. Diane stood there, smiling like she had been waiting. "Emily, sweetheart!" She pulled my wife into a hug, completely ignoring me for a few seconds. Then she looked at me. "Oh, you're here too." I forced a smile. "Good to see you, Diane." "Of course," she said, already turning away. "Come in." Inside, the house smelled like roasted chicken and something sweet. The dining table was already set. Emily's father sat at the head, quiet as always, reading something on his phone. Her younger sister, Claire, waved at us from the couch. Everything looked normal. Perfect. Too perfect. Dinner started off the way it always did. Small talk, safe topics. Work, weather, neighbors. I kept my voice calm, my tone neutral, playing my role like I had learned to do. Then, slowly, Diane started doing what she always did. Little comments, small jabs. "So, Daniel, how's work going? Still at the same company?" "Yeah, things are going well." "That's good. Stability is important." I nodded. Then she added, almost casually, "especially when you're not the primary earner." The table went quiet for half a second. I felt Emily shift slightly beside me. I kept my expression neutral. "We both contribute," I said, calmly. "Of course," Diane smiled. "Emily has always been ambitious." There it was. The edge. I took a slow breath. "Ambition's a good thing," I said. "It is," Diane agreed. "Some people just have more of it than others." Claire suddenly became very interested in her plate. Emily didn't say anything. She just kept eating. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I let it go, because this wasn't new. This was how these dinners worked. Until it wasn't. Halfway through the meal, the conversation shifted. Diane started talking about houses, real estate, prices going up, neighborhoods changing. "I've been telling Emily," she said, "you two should really think about upgrading." Emily nodded slightly. "We've talked about it." I frowned. "We had?" "When?" I asked. Emily glanced at me quickly. "Just in general." Diane smiled. "Well, you know, with Emily's salary, she could qualify for something much nicer." Something in her tone made my stomach twist. "And Daniel could help, of course," she added, almost as an afterthought. I set my fork down. "We're doing fine where we are." Diane tilted her head. "Fine isn't the same as good." I looked at her. "And what's that supposed to mean?" Emily nudged my arm under the table,
but something inside me had already shifted. Diane leaned back slightly, still smiling. "It means my daughter deserves the best." "And she has it," I replied. The air changed instantly. Subtle, but heavy. Diane's face faded just a little. "Does she?" I felt my jaw tighten. "Yes." She gave a soft laugh. "I suppose that depends on your definition." Emily whispered under her breath, "Daniel, please." But I couldn't stop now. "Maybe we just have different priorities." Diane raised an eyebrow. "Or different standards." That was it. That was the moment something snapped. "Why do you always do that?" I said, my voice sharper than I intended. The table froze. Diane blinked. "Do what?" "Yeah, you do." "Daniel," Emily said firmly, "that's enough." "No," I said, turning slightly towards her. "It's not enough." The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in. "I've been quiet about this for years," I said, "but I'm not going to sit here and pretend everything is fine anymore." Diane's expression hardened. "If you have something to say, say it." I looked straight at her. "Fine, you don't respect me." Silence, heavy, uncomfortable. Then Diane let out a slow breath. "That's not true." "It is." "Daniel," Emily warned, but I kept going. "You've never respected me." Diane set her fork down carefully. "I welcomed you into this family." "No, you tolerated me." Her eyes narrowed. "That's your perception. It's reality." Emily stood up slightly from her chair. "Stop this now." But it was too late. Diane leaned forward. "Maybe if you had given me more reasons to respect you." And that's when I cut her off. "What, like making more money? Like being someone else?" The words hit harder than I expected. Diane's face went cold. Emily turned to me, her expression filled with something I hadn't seen before. Not embarrassment, not frustration, something deeper, something sharper. "Apologize," she said. I stared at her. "What?" "Apologize to my mother." I shook my head. "No." Her eyes hardened. "Daniel, I'm not apologizing for telling the truth." The silence that followed felt like standing on the edge of something dangerous. Emily's voice dropped. "You're making a scene." "I'm standing up for myself." "Not like this." "Then how? By staying quiet while she disrespects me?" Diane scoffed softly. "I think you're overreacting." And something inside me broke. "Overreacting?" I said. "You've been undermining me for years." "Enough," Emily snapped. The word echoed through the room. And then it happened. Before I could even process it, her hand moved, fast, sharp. The sound cracked through the air, and suddenly my face burned. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there, staring at her. The room was completely silent. Emily's hand was still slightly raised, her chest rising and falling, like she couldn't believe what she'd just done. Neither could I. Because in that moment, it wasn't just the slap that hurt. It was the look in her eyes. Cold, defensive, almost like I deserved it. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't just about dinner. This wasn't just about her mother. Something much bigger had been breaking between us, and I had just crossed a line I didn't even know existed. But what I didn't realize yet was that the slap was only the beginning, because later that same night, I was going to find out something about Emily and her family that would make this moment feel small. And once I saw it, there was no going back.
The sound of the slap didn't fade right away. It stayed there, echoing in my head long after her hand had dropped back to her side. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the air felt frozen. I could feel the heat spreading across my cheek, but that wasn't what I was focused on. I was looking at Emily, waiting for something. An apology? Regret? Anything? But all I saw was tension in her face, and something else underneath it, something I couldn't quite name yet. Her voice came out tight. "You shouldn't have said that." I blinked. That was it? That was all she had? "You just slapped me." I said quietly. "I told you to stop," her tone defensive now. "And that makes it okay?" "Daniel," her father started, but his voice died quickly, like he didn't want to get involved. Deanne leaned back in her chair, watching me. Not shocked, not concerned, just watching, like this was expected, like this was overdue. That realization hit me harder than the slap. I let out a slow breath and stepped back from the table. "I think I should leave." Emily crossed her arms. "Fine." Fine. That word settled deep in my chest. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, fine." I grabbed my jacket from the chair, my movements calm, controlled, but inside everything felt like it was unraveling. No one tried to stop me. No one said anything as I walked toward the door. Not even Emily, especially not Emily. I stepped outside into the cool night air, and the silence followed me out like a shadow. The door closed behind me, softly, like nothing had happened. I stood there on the porch for a few seconds, staring into the darkness. My hands were shaking slightly, so I shoved them into my pockets. "Get it together," I muttered under my breath. I walked to the car and got in, but I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there, breathing, trying to process what had just happened. My wife had slapped me in front of her entire family, and no one, not a single person, had acted like it was wrong. That thought kept circling in my head until something else pushed its way in. The look Diane had given me, calm, unbothered, almost satisfied, like she had been waiting for that moment. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Something's not right," I whispered. I started the car and drove home. The entire drive felt like a blur. Streetlights passing one after another, my mind replaying every second of that dinner, every word, every look. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I felt more exhausted than I had in months. The house was dark. Emily hadn't come back yet. Of course she hadn't. I stepped inside and tossed my keys onto the counter. The silence in the house felt different tonight, heavier, like it was pressing down on me. I walked into the living room and sat on the couch, leaning forward with my elbows on my knees. For a while, I just sat there, thinking, trying to understand, trying to make sense of it. But the more I thought about it, the less it made sense. Emily had never hit me before. We had arguments, sure, but nothing like that, nothing even close. So why tonight? Why that reaction? Why did it feel like I had stepped into something bigger than just a family argument? My eyes drifted toward the hallway, toward our bedroom, and that's when something strange clicked in my mind. The way Emily reacted when Diane mentioned the house, the way she avoided answering when I asked about upgrading, the way she looked at me, not angry, but almost pressured, like she was trying to control something before it slipped out. I stood up slowly, a thought forming, uncomfortable but impossible to ignore. I walked down the hallway and into our bedroom. Everything looked normal. Bed made, closet closed, nothing out of place. But something felt off. I moved toward her side of the room, her dresser. I hesitated for a second. Then I opened the top drawer. Clothes. Nothing unusual. Second drawer, more clothes. Third drawer, papers. That was new. Emily didn't usually keep papers here. I pulled the stack out slowly. At first, it looked like normal documents, bank statements, receipts. Then I noticed something. Multiple envelopes, all addressed to Emily, from the same place, a law firm. My chest tightened. I opened one, then another, then another. Each one contained copies of documents, legal documents. And then I saw it, a title at the top of one page, Property Consultation Agreement. My breath caught. I flipped through the pages quickly. My name wasn't on it, only hers. Dates, meetings, consultations, all within the last few months. My stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. I grabbed another document. This one was different, a printed email chain between Emily and her mother. My hands started shaking as I read. "We need to make sure he doesn't interfere. He won't. I'll handle him. You know how he is. If he finds out too early, he won't find out."
My heart began pounding harder. I flipped to the next page. More messages, more planning, more details. And then one line stopped me cold. Once the house is in your name, everything changes. My vision blurred slightly. What the hell? I flipped through the rest faster now, and then I saw the final document, the one that made everything click into place. A draft agreement. Prepared. Not finalized. Yet. At the top it read, Post-marital property adjustment. My chest tightened, because this time my name was on it. But I don't remember ever seeing this, ever signing this, ever agreeing to anything like this. I read the key section, and my blood ran cold. In the event of separation, full ownership of the property would transfer to Emily. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. No, 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 no! I stepped back, gripping the papers tightly. The argument at dinner, Diane pushing the topic, Emily trying to shut me down. The slap. It wasn't about disrespect. It wasn't about emotions. It was about control. I wasn't supposed to push. I wasn't supposed to question anything. Because if I did, I might uncover this. And I had. A car pulled into the driveway. My head snapped toward the window. Headlights swept across the wall. Emily. She was back. My pulse spiked. I looked down at the papers in my hands, then back toward the door. Footsteps approached. The front door opened, closed. Her voice called out, "Daniel?" I didn't answer. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. Her footsteps came closer, slower now, cautious. Then she appeared in the doorway of the bedroom, and the moment her eyes landed on the papers in my hands, everything changed. Her expression dropped. Not confusion, not surprise, recognition. She knew exactly what I was holding, and for the first time that night, I saw fear in her eyes. "Where did you get those?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked at her, like I was seeing her for the first time. Then I held up the papers slightly. "You want to tell me what this is?" She didn't move, didn't blink. The silence between us stretched, heavy, dangerous. And then she said something that made my chest go cold. "You weren't supposed to find that." Not, "It's not what it looks like." Not, "You're misunderstanding." Just, "You weren't supposed to find that." The exact kind of sentence that changes everything. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just an argument. This wasn't just her mother interfering. This was a plan, and I had just stepped right in the middle of it. But I still didn't know how deep it went, or how far they were willing to go to make sure I didn't stop it. And the way Emily was looking at me now told me one thing for sure. Whatever happened next was going to be worse than that slap.
For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The room felt smaller, like the walls were closing in around us. Emily stood in the doorway, her eyes locked on the papers in my hands, her breathing uneven. I had never seen her like that before. Not angry, not defensive. Scared. And that scared me more than anything else. I held up the documents again. "You want to explain this?" I asked, my voice low but steady. She swallowed. "It's not what you think." I let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "Really? Because it looks exactly like you and your mother have been planning to take the house from me." Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "Then make me understand." Silence stretched again, heavy. Then she slowly stepped into the room and closed the door behind her. That small action made my pulse spike. Like this wasn't just a conversation anymore. Like this was something she didn't want anyone else to hear, even though there was no one else in the house. "Daniel," she said softly, "we were trying to protect something." "Protect what?" I snapped. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. "You," she said finally. I stared at her. "Don't lie to me." "I'm not." Then explain why your mom is emailing you about making sure I don't interfere. Her eyes flickered. Because you would have. My grip tightened on the papers. Interfere with what, Emily? She looked away, and that's when I felt it. That shift. The moment where truth starts to surface whether someone wants it to or not. I took a step closer. What are you hiding? She didn't answer. Emily. Still nothing. Tell me the truth. Her shoulders dropped slightly, like something inside her finally gave up. And when she looked back at me, the fear in her eyes had changed into something else, something heavier, something trapped. This house, she started slowly. It was never just a house. A chill ran down my spine. What does that mean? She let out a shaky breath. It belonged to my grandmother before my parents. I frowned. You told me that before. Yes, but you don't know everything. My chest tightened. What don't I know? Her voice dropped. There's something tied to it. I felt irritation rise. Emily, stop speaking in riddles. I'm not, she said quickly. I don't know how to say this. Try. She hesitated again. Then finally, there's a clause in the original property deed. My stomach twisted. A clause? Yes. What kind of clause? Her eyes met mine, and for a second I saw something raw there, something real. If the house is ever jointly owned outside of direct bloodline, it can be legally claimed by an external trust. I blinked. What? She nodded slowly. My grandmother set it up decades ago. The house has to stay in the family. If it doesn't, it can be taken. I stared at her, trying to process. That doesn't make any sense. It didn't to me either, she said, until we got the notice. What notice? Her voice shook slightly now. 3 months ago, a legal firm contacted my mom. My pulse quickened. They said because your name is on the house, the clause was triggered. I felt like the ground shifted under me. And if we didn't fix it, we would lose everything. Lose it to who? A trust, she said, one that's been waiting for years for a situation like this. I shook my head slowly. So your solution was to, what, trick me? Transfer everything behind my back? Her eyes filled slightly. We didn't have time. You had months. You wouldn't have agreed. Of course I wouldn't have, I snapped, because you didn't tell me the truth. I was trying to save it. By lying to me? Her voice broke. Yes! The word echoed through the room, and then silence again. Heavy. Sharp. I ran a hand through my hair, pacing once across the room. I turned back to her and said, This doesn't explain the rest. The emails, the pressure, the dinner tonight, the slap. Her face tightened. That wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. She looked down. My mom pushed too hard. No, I said quietly. You pushed too hard. She didn't argue, didn't defend herself, and that silence said more than anything else. I held up the papers again. So what's the end plan, Emily? She hesitated, then answered. We transfer everything fully into my name, temporarily. Temporarily, I repeated. Yes. And then what? We sell it before the trust can act. My chest went cold. Sell it? Yes. And what happens to me? Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. That was my answer. I let out a slow breath. So I get cut out. It's not like that. It is exactly like that. I was going to tell you. When? After everything was done? Tears slipped on her face now. I didn't know how. I shook my head slowly. No, you just chose not to. Another silence. Longer this time. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Her eyes dropped to it instantly. What are you doing? I recorded everything, I said calmly. Her face went pale. The conversation at dinner? Your mom? Everything. Her breathing stopped for a second. "And these documents," I continued, lifting the paper slightly, "they're already backed up. Daniel, and tomorrow morning, I'm taking all of it to a lawyer." She took a step toward me. "Wait, please." I stepped back. "No." Her voice cracked. "We can fix this." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I had built a life with, the woman who had just admitted to planning everything behind my back. I said quietly, "You already tried to fix it. This is what that looks like." She broke down then, crying openly, but something inside me had gone completely still. Not angry, not emotional, just done. I walked past her towards the door. "Daniel, please don't do this," she said through tears. I stopped for a second, my hand on the doorknob, but I didn't turn around. "Good night, Emily." And then I walked out. The door closed behind me, soft, final. The air outside felt colder than before, but clearer. For the first time all night, I could breathe. I didn't know what would happen next, didn't know how deep this situation really went, didn't know who was telling the full truth or how much was still hidden. But one thing was certain. That slap at the dinner table wasn't the moment everything broke. It was the moment everything was revealed. And something tells me this story isn't over yet. Because the deeper I dig into that house, that clause, and that trust, the more I realize there's still something they're not telling me. And I'm going to find out, no matter what it takes. If this story pulled you in and kept you hooked to the end, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intense, emotional, and suspense-filled stories like this. Because trust me, the next one might be even crazier.